We are rolling on part 2 on November 10th, listening to extemp speeches here at UCLA, where it's a beautiful day. The sunshine is shining. And we're about to hear an extemp on the question, are American ground forces the only way to stop ISIS?
Hi everyone, my name is Vartan, and today I'm going to answer the question, are American ground forces the only way to stop ISIS? Harvesting human organs, selling of children and women, mass beheadings videotaped for the world to see. These are just some of the things ISIS is doing and that we need to put an end to. One victim was Leah. Just 17 years old, Leah was a captured sex slave by ISIS. Leah and other women were raped multiple times throughout the day by different ISIS men. In addition, they were fed rice and tomato sauce during their captivity. Today, I'm going to answer a question that is connected to the success of putting an end to this merciless group's heinous crimes against humanity. My answer to the question, are American ground forces the only way to stop ISIS, is no. I will give you all 3 alternatives to stopping ISIS, which will in turn support my answer. Although these alternatives are not purely exclusive, they will be sufficient enough to put an end to ISIS without U.S. boots on the ground. The first way to stop ISIS without ground forces is to cut ISIS supply. As an old saying goes, a group with an empty stomach is unable to march. The second way to stop ISIS is to intensify airstrikes. We are currently weak in the air and are dropping 90% less bombs as we did against the Taliban about 10 years ago. The third way to stop ISIS is to work with anti-ISIS groups. This will fuel a war against ISIS led by anti-ISIS groups within areas occupied by ISIS and thereby save U.S. boots from being on the ground. Stopping ISIS is very important. It is important to you and I because ISIS is looking to turn the U.S. and Western Europe into guerrilla war zones where we have suicide bombings, mass murders, and beheadings on a daily basis in the middle of our cities. These bombings and terror plots kill so many innocent people, and that is why we need to put a significant effort to put an end to this. The first alternative to ground force is cutting ISIS supply. As mentioned in a 2015 Global Research article, ISIS's fighting capacity depends entirely on its supply lines. Cutting these supply lines will lead to its inevitable defeat. For the United States, who is either allied with or has troops operating in all nations bordering Syria, cutting ISIS supply lines will be a simple matter. ISIS makes a significant amount of money and resources because of its occupying of different towns and cities. They use their presence and occupation at the cities to bring in smuggled fuel from other countries and general goods from country to country to make big profits. In order to stop this supply line, the U.S. needs to ally with bordering countries where ISIS occupies and has to fuel their army in order for them to stabilize their borders, bridges, and waters. This way, we do not have to go out there ourselves, and it will inevitably defeat ISIS. The second reason why ground force is not the only way is because we can intensify our airstrike to put an end to ISIS. According to a 2014 Reuters article, during the 75-day period, the U.S. had dropped 24,000 bombs targeting the Taliban, in contrast to 2,300 bombs targeting ISIS. We are not putting in our full potential, which can be beneficial to the world that we live in. Airstrikes are a bigger risk to civilians on the ground, but a military on the ground is also at risk of death. We have successfully defeated terrorist groups like the Taliban before, and anything short of what we have done before is not sufficient to defeat ISIS. The third alternative to ground forces against ISIS is to promote and fuel anti-ISIS groups. There are many different anti-ISIS groups with their own militia armed facing ISIS. These groups are already in areas that are occupied by ISIS, and it is easy for them to get intel via communities, members, and to community members and languages. An example of this type of group would be the YPG. They are a Syrian group against ISIS that is getting Western aid from Ian Bradbury, who used to be a Canadian soldier. In a 2014 CNN interview, he said that increasing YPG ability to maintain stability over the long term is far better than trying to influx it with a bunch of Westerners who are going to leave within a short period of time. Then we have Major Omar Villarreal. He told CNN in 2014 that we are confident the U.S. military mission of degrading and ultimately defeating ISIS will be found by working through our Middle Eastern partners and the international community. In summary, I have brought forward 3 different ways we can fight ISIS without deploying troops. First, we must cut ISIS supply. Second, we should intensify airstrikes to put an end to ISIS. And lastly, we should fuel anti-ISIS groups that are currently in place on ground to make up for the U.S. troops from being on the ground. There should be no doubt in this room that sending ground forces is not the only way to stop ISIS. These breakdowns are necessary for us because it will be necessary to implement a way to put an end to these atrocities. We must save those like Leah. We must put an end to the evil beheadings of innocent people, selling of organs, children, and women. Thank you.
452. What'd you like?
My name is Sheehan. Hello.
Hi, Sheehan.
I'm fine. I like the analysis a lot. I think the analysis was strong. I was wondering how you're going to approach your negative stance, and I was saying, like, are you going to give like disadvantages of a ground strike, things like that. But I really like the idea of here are other options that will do the same job. We don't need to do this ground attack. So I thought the analysis and the points were very well made.
Thank you. Okay. Turn off your phone. That's my phone.
Do you want me to answer it for you?
No.
You're really funny. Your secretary?
The Wall Street Journal. Oh, here.
They can wait.
Help him improve.
Hi, my name is Lala.
Hi, Lala.
Improvement is that I think you read too much.
You know, this is not an English class.
Yeah.
It's a nice essay.
And maybe walk with your notes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay, good. Let's start at the top, Barton. The overarching thing is I'm trying to get you to get out of your notes and to trust your memory. Just watch the other speeches. Just notice notice the other people that spoke without notes, how much more effective they are and were than a read speech. It doesn't engage an audience. It sounds monotone. It sounds dull. Now, since you insist on not trusting your memory, if you had 2.5 minutes left, if you're going to read, if you have to read, and that's going to be the way you insist on doing this thing, then at least yellow and underline key words so it's somewhat interesting reading. You read in a monotone. Okay, so that's my big overarching point, okay, of your effectiveness. You started with Leah, a story, and you returned to Leah. It was a good story. I would have liked stories all the way through your speech, not just in the beginning. Your answer was no. Make that more emphatic, a big emphatic no. Your preview was fine, a little wordy, but, I guess it was, solid analysis as far as it goes of not putting U.S. boots on the ground. The significant statement was okay. The global research article, would have been interesting to know who this was by or who wrote it. It was 2015, and that was good. But cutting their supply lines, you say, is a simple matter. Not so sure of that. I'm not sure how we're going to do that exactly, but we have to deal with bordering countries to cut the supply lines. Reuters, I believe it's pronounced Reuters. Can you say that? Reuters?
Oh, okay. Reuters.
Reuters, yeah, Reuters, yeah.
Did I say Reuters?
Yeah, you said Reuters, yeah, Reuters. You point out just a numerical difference in the bombing, and you seem to just leave us to infer that more bombs are going to be more effective, and I'm not so sure, but that was the inference you left us with. So, but we didn't really have any evidence that more bombs would do something amazing. Okay. On the your third alternative about, I think that is right. I think we don't plan to stay there and govern Syria or any of those regions. So, it's like Colin Powell said when everyone wanted to rush into Iraq. You broke it, you fixed it, you own it, and ooh, boy, do we own it. And boy, is it a mess. Your summary was fine. Your conclusion was fine. Your tie back to Leah was fine. You said, walk with the main points. Don't rely on my notes. And speak with a passionate voice. How did it go?
I think I got the first part a little more memorized than the rest. And I just started reading towards the significant statement and kind of just snowballed after that. And I started looking at it more frequently.
Right.
And I think I read way too fast because I did read it and time myself beforehand. And it was like around 7 minutes.
Yeah, I hate to keep belaboring this point, but I mean, are you going to go through life with never giving a speech without notes?
I mean, I tried.
You want to be a lawyer? You're going to go in front of a jury and read to a jury?
No, I wrote it down. That's why I feel like if it's written down, I'm relying on it.
But how are you going to talk to a jury?
Without notes.
Well, you better start here at UCLA, my friend. I know I'm being an a-hole here, but
no, you're not.
I'm trying to help you.
No, I appreciate the
whatever. Okay. Speak with a passionate voice. So if you're going to read, that's why I meant underline keywords and key expressions, and so you stress certain things. So you could still be passionate. We have an event in college, for instance, called Reader's Theater, which is very dramatic. People have to read it, but they still are dramatic in doing it. So, I worry that it's going to take some sort of, we already have 50 troops on the ground now in Syria, and I worry that it ultimately may take some American boots on the ground to assist the Kurds or something to really get it going before it spreads like a virus. But we'll see. Okay, thank you, Barton. Okay. Okay, next. Any more volunteers? Okay, let me randomly call on another person. Cody Keem. Oh, good for you. Okay, good. You lucked out. Raymond. Raymond Lou.
That's all an impromptu is.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
He needs the green meanie.
Yeah, I need this.
You need the green meanie. Yeah, that's good.
So I have my,
It's coming real handy.
yep, I have my outline, bibliography, and then you're supposed to attach this from last time, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
that's the idea. Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
Professor, for the sign-up sheet on the impromptu student sign-up by speaker, and if there's already a speaker on it, can you still do that?
That's such a nice handwriting.
What?
Really?
She's not being sarcastic. She really means it.
It's hard to withdraw.
So just a reminder to everybody about the third extemp. You remember, if we don't get to them, you're going to turn it in, a complete outline with a bibliography during your impromptu time. So everyone say that aloud. I'm turning in my third impromptu.
I'm turning in my third impromptu.
I didn't hear her say it.
I'm not ready.
Here, poke her.
Do we turn that in?
Can you poke her? Yeah, she's reading. Can you poke that girl there?
All four.
Did you hear that, what I just said?
They're all daytime.
No, you didn't.
The exam speeches that we have done now.
Exam, impromptu, policy agreement. all.
I said we're all turning in our third impromptu. Got that right. Okay. Okay, Charlie, I gotta adjust the camera. You're a little taller than the last speaker. Okay, good. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, Charlie stands before you managing attention. They're talking. Communicating respect non-verbally, saying to himself, I respect my audience. Finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
Hello everyone, my name is Charlie and I'm here today to talk about the question, should India have banned the documentary India's Daughter? Well, first I want you all to imagine a typical night when you go out to see a movie with a friend and you're coming home at 9 p.m. and you take the bus home. And when you get on the bus, you realize that every man on the bus is conspiring against you, including the bus driver. And when they begin to ask you questions about why you're out so late, mind you, this is only 9 p.m., you are attacked. Your friend is knocked unconscious, and the men begin to encroach upon you and brutally attack you and rape you. And when you try to fight back, they knock you unconscious, and they throw you and your friend off the bus, leaving you for dead. This is what happened to Jyoti Singh in India on December 12th, 2012. If you were Jyoti, would you want your story to be told, or would you want it to be covered up so that it might happen again to someone else? The film India's Daughter, directed by Leslie Udwin, is the account of 23-year-old medical student Jyoti Singh and the events that occurred with her December 12, 2012. It tells us all the facts of the night and interviews the victims' families, as well as the perpetrators of the rape and their lawyers. It's an insightful look into the problems of India's culture with misogyny and the way that men treat women as second-class citizens. Now, when we consider the government's banning of this film, we have to look at how it arouses suspicion of the government itself, how it denies freedom of speech to the people of India, and how it suppresses change for women. When we look at all these things, we can clearly answer this question with a decisive no. This is significant to us because the limited release of this film acts as direct roadblock to women's rights in India and also keeps us in the dark, meaning that really we are impeding any progress or any change. So first, I want to talk about the first reason why I think that the government should not have banned this movie. Banning this movie acts as an impediment to artistic expression and freedom of speech. The director, Leslie Udwin, has the right to share her opinions in her videos, and the people of India similarly have the right to view whatever they'd like to view. In the landmark judgment of the case Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, the Supreme Court held that freedom of speech and expression has no geographical limitation and carries with it the right of a citizen to gather information and to exchange thoughts with each other, not only in India, but also abroad. Now, when we think about this movie, we think about a movie that applies not only to the people of India, but also an issue that really applies to everyone, because we see issues where men are treating women as second-class citizens in more than just India. It really applies to everyone. And when we look at Article 19 of the Indian Constitution, one of the restrictions to absolute freedom of speech is any remark that is defamatory towards India. So, that is the one restriction where the Indian government actually had the right to ban this movie. But I contend that this movie really isn't defamatory towards India so much as it is pointing out a problem in the government. It's really not any attack on the Indian people so much as an attack on the culture, and really it's looking to be a solution to a problem more than anything. Yes, it paints the rapist in a negative light, obviously, but I think that any film deserves to expose the fact that terrible people exist, and just as any documentary would, tries to incite change. Now, the second thing that we need to deal with is the fact that banning this movie actually is counterintuitive and counteractive to the government's intentions because it creates suspicion around the government more than anything. According to an article published by the New Statesman on March 5th, 2015, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister was quoted as saying, "We can ban the film in India, but in reality, this is an international defamation of India, and for that reason, we look to ban the release of this movie abroad as well." So as we can see, the government is really on the defensive here. They think that this movie will really make them look bad, which it does. But banning it doesn't help them at all. Really what that does is just make them look guilty. The real issue here is that this movie deals with an institutional lack of respect for women perpetrated by the government. And while the government may not agree with the content of this film, it has to acknowledge that learning about Jodi's rape does India more good than bad. The only downside is that certain people might be offended by this, but really the only people offended by this are the perpetrators themselves, including the rapists, the rapist lawyers, and the real guilty people are the government who allowed this kind of behavior to happen. So, thirdly, I want to talk about how this movie, most importantly, oppresses the rights of women in India. If people in India are not allowed to see the anguish on the faces of the victim's family, or they're not allowed to hear the chilling testimony of her rapists, then when will they ever really learn about what's going on in their country? I've mentioned the government's failure to address India's culture, and here's where I get into the specifics of what those attitudes really are and where they need to change. Okay, so according to a New York Times article on March 12th, the lawyers defending the rapist hold equally disgusting views to the rapists they defend in the first place. One lawyer named M.L. Sharma said the following. He said, "Men are like thorns to a woman's rose." So that sounds kind of good. It sounds like a very respectful thing to say. But what he means is this. Roses, when in a temple, are worshipped, but when they find themselves in a gutter, become soiled. And that what he means by this is that a woman should really just be home at night, aka the temple. And if she finds herself in the gutter, aka out in the streets, then she cannot really expect anything but to be soiled. And when he refers to men as thorns, what he means is that they can't help but be disgusting and can't help but inflict pain. It's natural. But it's really the woman's fault that they are raped. So we can see that even lawyers hold the same sentiments. Now, this isn't a new phenomenon. Looking at an article written about 12 years ago in the Economic and Political Weekly Journal, we were presented with the facts of the Mathura rape case. Now, this is what the judges said to reverse the decision to convict the accused rapist. They said the following. The absence of visible injury marks on Mathura's body was read as consent by the victim, and she was deemed to be habitualized to sexual intercourse, and therefore was deemed to be loosely moraled. So what we see here is a long-standing tradition of blaming women for their own rape. And it's completely unacceptable, to be honest. So, in summation, India needs an institutional change in the way it views rape. In Jodi's case, her attackers were sentenced to death, yes, but the real issue here is that their morality did not change. Their viewpoints did not change, and that is what is present in the documentary. But if you ban the documentary, then people in India and abroad will never know that things haven't changed, and they really do need to. So, if you were Jodi Singh, and your story could be told, and someone took an interest, and they wanted to release it to the world, how would you feel if you knew that your own government was banning it, and no one would ever know? Thank you.
7:35. We're here. Where are we? Here? Yeah.
Hey guys, my name's Cody.
Hi, Cody.
I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed that you were walking and that you I don't know, I thought it was a very emotional kind of story, and I thought that was kind of cool. I liked the metaphors you used, the evidence you cited. I thought it was very credible. Especially the rose thorn, the roses and the thorn.
Yeah, it's messed up.
I was like, holy
Yeah, it's how people think.
It's
That's how they
pretty
really
powerful,
think. Yeah.
Powerful.
Okay, we're back over here now, I think. Has everyone had a chance to? No, you, Raymond?
Hello, I'm Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
Your speech was really good. The one thing is the notes, because I'm guessing you have great citations that have great evidence, so I'm guessing you're just reading like the citation
Yeah.
and direct quotes.
Yeah, most of the time I was looking down was just because I didn't memorize the exact quote.
Oh,
And I had to
okay.
cite specific court cases. But yeah, I did look down a little too much. I understand that.
Yeah, but beside that, I understand exactly like why you would do that, because it's hard to remember specific data and stuff.
Yeah, and I was quoting some verbatims.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. Yes.
Charlie, it was a good speech. Let me suggest some ways it could be more effective. You wisely chose a topic that's got built-in emotional appeal and interest to men and women, and it's become an international issue. So that was wise. Some of these economic topics can put an audience to sleep, so.
Yeah.
This one clearly didn't put your audience to sleep. You started with an intro which was sort of imagined, so it's sort of a story, you're running home and try a poem, a quote, a story, a joke, something different, not a joke, but something that gives you more meat to tie back to. But you tied back to this, okay, so that was okay. It took you a while to finally get to introduce the question, which leads me to ask the question, should India have banned the documentary India's Daughter? My answer is a big fat no, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. And then the other thing, and your 6th statement was excellent, by the way, and the other thing I think would have been more effective is after you finished your saying that banning the movie is against artistic expression and freedom of speech, and that's why India should not have banned the documentary. But there's a second reason why it shouldn't have banned it, and that is it creates a suspicion in the government.
Yeah.
And then do your spiel there. And that's why India should not return to your thesis at the end of each section.
So really spell it out.
What?
So spell it out more.
Spell it out more. That each of your points supports your thesis.
Okay.
India shouldn't have banned this documentary because that's the central point you were trying to drive home. That kind of got a little lost in a lot of the minutia of great analysis and research and stories. I especially like the Mathura rape case that you pulled out of 12 years ago. It shows you how far India hasn't come, right?
Yeah.
And then your third reason, the same thing. And then your summary was fine, your conclusion and tieback were good, your research was pretty good. You said, I'd like to have 3 goals each time. You said, don't look at the paper too much, and just spend a little more time with working with remembering the quotes and remembering, because you have a great natural speaking style, and it was just hurt a little by you having this big white piece of paper in front of you and looking down a bit. But mostly when you were looking up, you were very effective. So that was a good job, Charlie. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Are we going to get notes on how to judge the people for votes?
You sure are, on Wednesday.
Okay.
And you're going to get a video to watch.
You're going to email it to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can the next person go up? Oh, we have time for one more. Yeah, let's.
Less than 10 minutes.
Do we have
Okay,
time?
CDC mandate. We sure do. Come on.
Oh, we have 9 minutes left.
Yeah, that's all I need. 7 for you. I'll give a 2-minute critique.
Now it's 7.
Now it's 7.
Oh, quit whining. Get up
Please,
here.
Professor.
Oh my God, what a baby. You don't want to do it today? Is that it?
Really not.
Yeah. Okay, you're luck.
I'll be the first one next week.
Whatever. Okay, our work is done.
Good work, team.